All right, we're live. Sorry, I'm a little late. Light on. Make sure everything looks and looks good. Can y'all hear me? Oh, I haven't hooked up to that. Just let me know if y'all can hear me. I can't test the audio at the moment. No, let me turn that up. Headphones, right there. We're dropping some knowledge today. Okay, I can hear things. Okay, sounds good. Now I'm gonna start off standing up, so let me angle that up a little bit. Oh, that's too far, I think. Why does it look so tall? It's my tracking thing. All right. Today we're going to be going over my last tournament out on Squaw Creek. This will be an interesting one. Squaw Creek is an interesting lake. It is a power plant lake. So even though it was the middle of the winter time, the water was always 70 degrees. So y'all let me know if everything looks and sounds good on y'all's end. Yeah, we ain't got nobody in here yet. Oh, there's somebody. Hey, welcome in, Rippin' Rods. I'm live over here because I'm partnered with them, and so I do some stuff for their YouTube channel, basically. And they sponsor my tournament fishing stuff. So basically, after every tournament, I do one of these tournament breakdown lives and go over the baits and how I caught the fish, where I caught them, usually where I caught them. I'll go over where I caught them this time. But there is next tournament, I might have to keep it a little more secret. This one is interesting. We got a power plant lake this time. Comanche Peak Nuclear Power Plant. Water is always warm. I did learn something kind of, it makes sense, but at the same time, it was surprising. Learned after the tournament. So I'll go over that too. It'll make sense, but at the same time, it won't make sense. But did that say 30? Why does it say 1 over here? This thing isn't working. Okay, yeah, it did say 30. Well, I guess we can get into it. We ain't got nobody chatting, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna sit down. We'll take us a look at this lake. Let me go into this view, I think. Yeah, that'll work. This is the lake right here. This is Squaw Creek Reservoir. Doesn't have a name on here because I guess it's because it's a nuclear power plant. But yeah, here is our nuclear power plant right here. Is this where it comes out? I've been trying to find where the water actually comes out. I think, is it right here? That might be it right there, actually. I think you're, or it's this. I don't know. Power plant's like in the middle. We went over to this spot though, and there wasn't nothing coming out of it. So, uh, yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. We'll start off by what we did in practice. I found my spot in practice. So right here, you got the boat ramp. If you're going to this lake, let's see. Don't use this far right one, and I think don't use this one. Your trailer's literally just gonna fall off. I mean, I guess you probably don't have to go that deep, but some people went, like, just barely too deep, and their trailer fell off the edge of the boat ramp, and they got stuck just sitting. But, yeah, So we launched right there, and we started off. We came down over here to the dam, and we didn't fish there. There were people there. We fished down, basically fished this whole bank. I caught like one little one on a BFS crankbait. Then we fished this bank right here, and we didn't catch nothing there, so we ran across, came over to, yeah, it was this point right here. Was it? Oh, yeah, it was this point right here. And fished right here, and my dad lost one off the edge of this point. There's some trees. I'm just dragging a shaky head. I saw some fish, but this is a really small lake for the size of tournament we were fishing. So basically, like the whole time, it was um, the water just because we launched like before a lot of people, and so there were just a ton of people running across the lake. So being on this point in the middle of all of it was pretty rough. But we fished around. We came up in here. Um, we didn't catch anything in there. On this bank, there were some people behind us that did catch one or two on a crankbait, I think. Then we came around we came around this point, and I think I hooked one right here, and I had a bad leader knot, so it broke off my entire leader, but that was a nice one. That would have been a keeper. I might have to go back up in here next time. This is a fun lake for those of you who don't know. There's so many dang fish in this lake. You can go anywhere in this lake and catch fish. But yeah, we finished there. We fished there for honestly longer than I probably should have. Then we came down over. Well, let me double check over here. Yeah, we came down, we ran up here, and then we came over to, let's see which bank. It's a boat ramp. So right here, this little cove and this entire bank. I've fished a tournament here one other time, and I had a lot of luck right there. And so that's where we were going to go. But this lake was way too small for the size of tournament we were fishing on it, and there was boats in every spot you could possibly be. On that bank, on this bank, and there was literally one open spot, and it was right here. This little small stretch right here. There was like two boats in this cove and two more over here, and so I just pulled in right here. And I dropped down that trolling motor and I started catching them. There is like there's one tree that comes out of the water over here, and it's like you can actually see, and then there's like one smaller one right next to it, and a few more little ways out. But it was basically two isolated trees right next to each other. Um, there's also a ton of tilapia in this lake because this water never gets below like 68 degrees. The tilapia don't die off in the winter, so this lake has a ton of tilapia, which makes live scoping kind of difficult because it's hard to get through the tilapia. They're just there all the time. But on that tree, I basically scoped around that tree. There were a ton of tilapia all over it. I threw at it, and I didn't really see anything react to it. And so I kind of just went on the back side of the tree. I'd say the tree was kind of like right here. So I went on the back side, kind of scoped around right here, and saw one fish that itself and threw my drop shot over to it. It did end up being a bass. And so I ended up just looking around a little bit more. I didn't necessarily scoop anymore, but there were just tilapia everywhere. So I kind of just to basically, I didn't think they could all be tilapia. There were too many. So I was basically just, I threw over like next to the tree, basically, like next to the visible one and in front of the smaller one that was underwater that you couldn't see that was right next to it. And I ended up catching one right there too. My dad also got some bites right there on a shaky head, and I was still just doing drop shot. And I think I caught like one or two more little ones after that in that same little area, and I kind of moved away a bit. Um, I'd say it was about right even with like the that tree and the bank. So basically, if like the tree is right here where my mouse is, it's basically like right here. So between the bank and that tree. Um, I saw another smaller pile of fish. They still looked like a tilapia, but I threw my drop shot over there. I ended up catching a 4 pounder. Checking chat. It doesn't come through on StreamYard. Ain't nobody in here. Um, yeah, I ended up catching a 4 pounder right there and unhooked that fish and got it back as fast as I could and stopped fishing that. I knew there were fish there. I think I only ended up catching one right there that wasn't a keeper. Oh, and I didn't put that 4 pounder back and stop fishing. I made a few casts with a jerk bait, basically just to see if they would eat a jerk bait, and I caught one like in the tree, um, which was a keeper. It was like a 14 incher. They all got to be at least 14. So he was like a barely a keeper. But basically everything except for one fish was a keeper. So I knew that was a good spot. I was going to leave that alone. And this bank straight across, I was going to go to this point area, had actually, was it that point? Okay, no, it wasn't this point. It was this one. This is the one I wanted to go. And it had finally cleared up enough to where I could get over there. And so, but like there is a tree line about right here. So once you get about right here, you got to just put the trolling motor down and weave your way through and in there. And as we were doing that, I noticed the trolling motor was like felt like it was dying basically, and uh, so it basically was. And we ended up having to take it to. I think we went to like O'Reilly's, and we got the battery tested, and we had one of the four batteries was dead. And basically, if you don't have one battery, you're kind of screwed. So we had to get a new battery. We had to get off the water right then. And so this lake there are a lot of rules for like when you can be on the water and how long. So everyone had to be off the water by 3:30, and I think that happened about 11:30, 11:45 ish, whenever the battery went out. And so we ended up, I think we were able to get back on the water by like 1, 12:45 to 1. It was a pretty quick trip. We just got the battery replaced, and it was working good after that. Um, and I ended up not going up in there. I kind of just thought about it. I knew I could catch fish in there because of how much I'd caught in the past. And so I think we also didn't have, let's see, where do we end up? Oh, that's right. We went over to this little island and we fished off the edge of it because it's just surrounded in trees. There's a ton of trees in this lake. And my dad caught one little one on a shaky head right there. Fished that for a good amount of time, and then we ran down this way and we went in here. We didn't go in here because this is the barrier. But we fished this point a little bit. Ended up being like a really shallow flat. Wasn't really anything there. So stopped fishing that pretty quick. Or I guess there's basically tilapia everywhere we go in this lake, which is why live scoping is kind of hard. Because just every time you put the trolling motor down, there's tilapia. But that's basically we ran down to one more spot. I believe, yeah, it was this point right here. We started right here, and basically I just fished a crankbait all the way down to maybe about this point. Didn't catch any fish. So I ended up we ran across. I saw one spot that I visually saw it, checked the map, and it overall looked good. Um, it's hard to see on this map, but it was like, I think right here. You can sort of see where it goes from shallow to deep, and you just kind of got a little bit of mixture right going on right there. So I went over there, and like right where you can see this, the brighter, shallower stuff, it kind of just dissipates, I guess. It becomes deeper, closer to the bank. Like right here, where that was happening, there was a tree a little bit off of here that was straight up. It was laid down on the bottom, and I couldn't. I saw some fish in there. They looked pretty small, but I I basically one thing, like, when you're live scoping, you can't just throw at fish you can see. When you have structure like that, basically what I did is I just dropped my drop shot down in the middle of that tree and watched it go down there, and basically out of nowhere, a little bass came out. I just realized to move this marker. Here we go. Yeah, it didn't change much, but um, this is 2023. But yeah, same idea. Um, and uh, yeah, one little fish right there. It looked like there might have been one or two more in there. I don't think it was a keeper. I do remember it was extremely fat, but after I caught that one, it came out like right here. Didn't catch anything right here, so basically just started. The wind just kind of pushed us this way, and I basically just was on. So one thing, um, there was a little correlation between this spot and the spot where I caught most of my fish that day, and it was the way the tilapia were set up. They weren't like just all over the place. They're kind of just all lined up on the bottom, or not on the bottom, but they're all just lined up. It just looked different, and that's how it looked at the other spot too, where I caught the 4 pounder. And so basically, I just started throwing my drop shot out in the middle where all those tilapia were at, and I was just dragging it through. And I think I caught like one small one, and then I lost one that was like this big. I don't even know if I cooked him, but he just got his mouth around that. Yeah, that's what we did in practice. That was the last spot we fished. And then let's just show this road off real quick because so we got boat number 4, luckily, um, in that tournament, and um, we just didn't have experience with tournaments on the lake. We fished it one time, and it wasn't that big of a tournament like this one. So to this to the boat ramp, you have to. This is like the highway, and you come down on this road, and it basically just leads you all the way down to this gate. I guess it's not really a gate, but you have to. Is that even it? It wasn't a dirt road. I don't know why it looks like a dirt road on here, but um, yeah, basically, you had to come down to this little shack thing, and you had to get checked in. You have to have a reservation to fish this lake, and so basically, you go one boat at a time. And when we got there, we were backed up. So you got the highway over here. We were backed up to probably here, about where the 213 is, and it was just so dang slow. Um, it was mainly just because of this little hut thing right here. It was taking them so long for some reason, but once you got past that, this whole road was open for the most part, at least for us, and by the we got to the boat ramp, we got to go down pretty quick. I think we had to wait about right here, but we got lucky because right after us, that's when that line started backing up. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is the parking situation. You can see all the individual parking spots right here. These are all for boats. That's like, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 24-ish. I lost, I don't know how to count apparently. 24-ish spots, including the other side right here. There are 135 teams. There were 2 other tournaments going on this lake at the same time. And so this is kind of also a parking spot, just basically a dirt patch where people started parking. But I think we ended up having to park like up here, and way in was right there. Um, yeah, it took forever to get the boat in the water, and so I guess let's go ahead and go over the baits I caught all my fish on in practice. I caught my first little one on a BFS crankbait, and then everything else came on a little minnow style bait. I had nose hooked. It is some minnow style bait by Yum. It's like 3 inches long. I just had it nose hooked. I just couldn't get him to eat a worm. I don't know why. I've never really encountered that issue, but I also had never tried that little Yum bait either on a drop shot. But I did notice there were a ton of little bait fish everywhere. Um, they weren't like shad, so it was a little more of a skinny profile that kinda resembled them, just a little bigger, and that's what ended up working. But basically, we launched. This is where, like, the ceremony and stuff is at, and you go one by one. I think we didn't end up like, by the time we got in the water and my dad got the truck parked and made it back down through the water, all the way from up here down to the water by one of these 2 little docks, I think we went, like, right after boat 20, um, but luckily, we there was no one on our spot. I don't think anybody knew about that spot. It was the one and only spot no one wanted to fish, apparently. But yeah, I basically shot around and we just started right here. And I basically did the same thing I did in practice. I think first cast, I caught a undersized one. Third cast, I caught my first keeper, and I think I caught like one more keeper fairly quick on that drop shot, and then the keepers just started becoming hard to find, or at least to get to through all the small ones. I could catch the little ones, and so I kinda just started switching up between things, and I think I ended up catching my other 3 keepers on a little 2.8-inch swim bait on a jig head. I caught my first 5 fish all at this spot, and, let's see, we I stayed on this spot until we had to be checked back in at 1:45, and so I think I stayed at that spot till, like, 11:45, and I caught fish the whole time I was there, but they weren't the size I was looking for. I was really hoping I could find, like, 1 more of those 4-pounders, um, but this might have been the was it this one? I think it might have been this one, actually. Yeah, it was this one. Okay, so I shot across from here and went over here, weaved my way through all the bushes and 30-foot tall trees that will eat your all your both motors. That's why we had to put the trolling motor down because that one wasn't as expensive as the other one. Um, and I basically just started fishing up in here. There's no one going up in here. There was people all around over here. Um, there was some spot out here that was pretty good that I figured out after. There were too many people for me to fish over there anyways, but then there was just also people along here. But this tree line just goes out about this far. And so there's just basically people in every little spot on every little tree line. And, I came up in here, and basically there were so many trees, you had to find a way to position your boat in between them and hit spot lock. Um, I didn't throw the drop shot much in here. This spot is where I switched up to a Texas rigged ripple craw, in the Alabama craw color, and I flipped, like, in between these 2 trees and drug it out. There was one more small tree that I couldn't quite see that was, a little further out, and I basically came down right in the middle of that tree, and I ended up catching one right there on the ripple craw, and that ended up culling my smallest, and that ended up being the last fish I caught that day, and ended up weighing in, and I think I had 9.33 pounds on my 5, so bunch of monsters. Yeah, I didn't really have any good ones. I had, like, 1 2-pounder, and that was the biggest, or 2.5 probably, and all the rest were, like, identical 14.5 inchers. Some of them were fat, though, which was nice, but I ended up landing me 135 boats, um, or yeah, 135 teams, which is technically 135 boats, I guess. Um, wasn't anywhere near winning anything. They pay out 1 in every 8 places. I don't really know what that would have been. I think for the high school division, I would have been down to 7th or 8th place, um, because there was only, like, 75 in the high school division, and then the others were in the junior division, um, but hey, welcome in, Jane Ford. Appreciate you for stopping by. Finally got somebody who chatted something, but, yeah, didn't weigh in enough to win anything, but if I woulda had that 4-pounder from practice, that woulda shot me up into the top 10 and maybe higher. The weights were just so dang close. Um, yeah, it's a fun lake, but it's got a ton of little fish. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. So my phone died, which was what I was using as the webcam. So sorry about that. I don't know how long ago that happened, but I appreciate it. Let me move this that way so you can still see me. But yeah, I mean, basically everybody caught him on something different, it seemed like. I know I think 3rd place caught his on a chatterbait and a dice bait, which I haven't really tried dice bait yet. Um, let me check out that new 40 baits chatterbait. Then it broke off my only one. What is this? Sorry, I'm looking at all the codes that I really should have finished. But yeah, basically these fit. So after this tournament, um, my dad, uh, I wanted to go fishing, but it's been so cold and wet. Yeah, I've, I understand that. We had a pretty big cold snap down here, and there was snow on the ground for quite a few days, and it was thunderstorming this morning. But basically, so this lake, because it's a nuclear power plant lake, here is the nuclear power plant. This lake is basically used to cool this power plant. So they suck in water, they push it through that power plant to cool it off, and they push it out the other side. It comes out pretty dang warm. So basically, for the most part, this lake is um, it's I never saw any temperature below like 69, and um, it got up. I think 72 was the highest I saw whenever we came out towards the dam, towards the power plant. Um, but so in the summer, the water is like 100 degrees. This lake is only open in like in the winter, late fall to early spring, I think. I don't remember what time it closes. It wasn't open till like October. So in the summertime, this water's like 100 degrees, and so basically the fish are used to that. So whenever this water gets down to like 69 to 70 degrees, that's cold for them. And so these fish feel pretty cold. And, like, basically, they were in their winter phase, even though the water was still a whole lot warmer than basically any other lake would be this time of year, they to them, it was still hot, and so they were hugging that bottom fairly tight. Um, these fish, because of how warm the water usually stays, they feed pretty heavily most of the time because their metabolism is moving a whole lot faster, um, but, yeah. That also means I think they spawn more than 1 time a year, so there's a ton of fish in here, which means not many big ones. So basically, if you can find the 3 to 4 pounders, it is a huge benefit, and I think big fish was like 4.39, which is pretty small for big fish in most of these tournaments, but that's a pretty good one for Squaw Creek. It's not like a monster, but it is a solid fish. It's the kind you wanna find on this lake, but, um yeah, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, basically, so this time of year, you still gotta treat these fish as in more of a wintertime stage. That's why, like, the first time I went to this lake was in November, and they were eating crankbaits like crazy, and I just didn't remember the water temperature at that time, but I kinda thought it was gonna be pretty similar, but it ended up not being. I caught 1 fish on a crankbait, and it was, like, 10 inches long. It was a BFS crankbait. Um, so basically just slowing down with that drop shot and that Texas rig, just dragging it through those trees and by those trees ended up getting me those bites. So, um, yeah, I don't know if they would be radioactive, but I don't really know how that actually works. I don't know what nuclear power plants actually do, but now let me go full screen over here. Sorry about the poor camera quality. We lost our webcam. Let me um, scroll down, remove that. Stop screen. Oh, hold on. I got to. Okay, so it is open. Let me come over here. We're going to show off some of the baits that got it done for me. Heading over here to 40 Baits website. We're going to go over here to Craws, to the Ripple Craw, and Alabama Craw was the color that got me my last keeper that culled out my smallest. Let me go find this other bait. Unfortunately, Weird Baits doesn't have a bait like this one yet. I guess let's go to Tackle Warehouse. Um, guess we'll just search that. What the heck? There it is. It's this one. It's the Yum forward-facing sonar minnow. And I was using the 3-inch, and I just basically nose hooking it on a drop shot. I'm sure it still looks good over here. But let's see. The color I was using was Houdini Shad. So that's the color I was using. That's what I ended up catching 4 of my fish on in that 3-inch version. I guess they're on sale. I have to buy some more. You can't really find them in stores. Oh wait, y'all can't even see that. Hold on. Screwed up again. I'm just gonna share my entire screen, my second screen. And make sure it looks good. Okay, that's not the second. Okay, I shared the wrong screen. Man, I am not doing good at this right now. Entire screen 1. Okay. So now you'll basically just be able to see my screen. I can bounce between tabs. Okay, so that is the Alabama Craw, Ripple Craw that got me my last keeper to call the smallest, and then this is the bait that I caught my other fish on. Started streaming. Okay, never mind. Forgot it's not working. How long have I been streaming? This whole thing is messed up. I'm just refreshing. But yeah, that's the bait that caught me most of my fish in both practice and the tournament. Um, yeah, I had that rigged up on just a nose hook drop shot hook and a 3/16 ounce drop shot weight. And then technically, um, I didn't do a traditional Texas rig for that ripple craw. I I guess technically it was a drop shot. I had I think I had a quarter ounce drop shot weight because I was out of Texas rig weights. So I had a 3/0, just standard Texas rig hook, but I put that um, quarter ounce drop shot weight on my tag end, and so I guess rather than standing like this, it was more just like that. But it ended up getting me that one fish at that last one. And another thing that's great about that 40 baits ripple craw is the material they use. It's extremely durable. So I was going in and out of a ton of trees. I caught that one fish, and I didn't have any issues with it ripping. The only issues I had was whenever I kept putting the hook in wrong, like 4 times, and eventually it ripped. But it's got great durability. The action's awesome. And at the moment, let me try and throw it back up there. There are 3 colors. They might be coming out with some new ones soon, hopefully. We got watermelon red, green pumpkin, and Alabama craw, which is my personal favorite. I think because they're eating craws this time of year. I think it looks like a craw. I've never seen like a true red crawfish down here, but I have seen them look a little more orange, so that's why I like that color a little more. And you can't go wrong with watermelon red. Throw that sucker up a shaky head, you'll get. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here. We've been live for about 30 minutes. Um, if any of y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll do that for like the next 3 minutes, I guess. Or I guess until 7:10. So 4 minutes. I'll be ending the live stream. I don't even know if there's anybody watching anymore. Nope. I'm probably just gonna go ahead and end it here. Appreciate y'all for watching. Subscribe to the 40 Baits YouTube channel if you haven't already. Do another giveaway at 300 subs. Check out 40baits.com, link in the description. Actually, let me just link it in chat real quick if anyone's actually watching. So y'all can visit it. Check out all the awesome baits over there. Um, yeah, appreciate y'all for watching and subscribe. See y'all on the next one. Peace.